What's up, everybody? We have 10 minutes here with Rob Morell from engineering to talk to you all about magnifiers, the ones that go behind red dots. Now, we'll just real quick get this out of the way. For those not familiar, a magnifier, if you've ever seen somebody using a red dot or a holographic sight, and there is yet another optic behind it, could be flipped off to the side, could be flipped up directly behind that optic, that is usually, unless you're using something else interesting, a magnifier, which is essentially magnifying the image that you're seeing through the red dot or the holographic sight by 3x, 4x, 5x, whatever it might be. It magnifies essentially everything, the reticle, the image, all that stuff. And you would use it in the case, obviously, if you need a little bit more than just what your natural eye can give you, which I guess you could call one power. And that's kind of the use of it. It's something small. It can flip to the side. You can use just the red dot. It can flip up, and then you can use the magnification. So we're going to talk all about these things. Rob, Can you explain to us just some of the engineeringness behind what these are? Isn't it kind of basically just like a prism sight on a mount, essentially?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to that. Principal difference, I guess, between this and a prism sight is that there's no reticle in the magnifier. So, but yeah, otherwise largely constructed similarly. You might not be able to turn a magnifier into a prism sight, but you could turn a prism sight into a magnifier, and that's just based on the construction and kind of where you decide to put the reticle and things like that. So, fun fact for you there. But yeah,
that is a fun fact.
Effectively, that it's also, you could think about it as it's like half of a binocular if it's this is using a roof prism design.
Oh.
So you can also think of it that way, just in a much more compact form factor. So
that's pretty sweet. Now, the actual unit itself is pretty simple. I mean, you can take this thing, in this case right now, what's in front of us, and we'll talk about it in a bit here, is the new Micro 3X. Pretty cool. You can take it. It's got a quick release base on it, slap it on the rail right behind your dot, and in theory, boom. What more is there to talk about, Vortex?
Yeah.
Well, a few things that people ask sometimes is, why does it actually have turrets on it if it doesn't have a reticle in it? What's the deal with those? What do those actually do?
Yeah, good question. So you're really kind of adjusting the optical system to be centered with whatever optic you have in front of it, whether it's a red dot or holographic sight. So think of it as more of a centering system than anything else.
Oh, it doesn't just automatically do that necessarily.
No, it's an interesting product idea, but I think it might be a little bit cumbersome and expensive to have an auto-centering system. But yeah, good idea. But yeah, it's really just so, you look through it, let's say you have a red dot in front of it, and your dot's kind of off to the top right of the field of view as you're looking through the magnifier. It's really just to kind of center the image that you're magnifying, center it up.
If it wasn't centered, would that have any issues on your point of impact or anything like that?
No, it really wouldn't. I mean, what you could end up having happen is if there's any sort of aberrations that are going on with the optical system and the prism, which this is actually a pretty good optical system, all things considered, for the price and what else is in the market that's a lot more expensive than it. You might have some point of aim shift that could be that could be seen with it, but really it's not a huge deal if it's not perfectly centered up.
Okay. Generally speaking, a good idea to center things up, though, in optics.
Yeah, it has a weird effect with your brain where it's just a little bit more pleasing when everything's centered there, at least for me, I guess.
Yeah. Now, Mark, I forgot to mention earlier, this is something that traditionally goes on an AR-15. You're familiar with ARs now.
I heard of it, yeah.
Right, because you have one.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes,
I
I
haven't
do
talked
remember.
about it in a while.
Yes.
I think you're still working with Ryan to get it set up.
We're getting her sorted out. She's going to be a beaut, though, Clark.
She'll be a beaut. But that's what we're talking about here.
Oh, it's all coming together. All right, I do have a question.
Yeah, what's up, Mark?
Are there any unique challenges? Because, you look at a binocular, it's binocular. Look at a rifle scope, it's a rifle scope. Now we're pairing essentially two entirely separate optics together. Are there unique challenges to make that work, or is that what the turrets are overcoming on the magnifier?
Yeah, I mean, you're basically taking the whole optical system and you're building in some adjustability to it. So it's really largely the same optical design. There'll be a carriage that interfaces with these turrets that kind of allows everything to get centered up. But it's really not too complicated from an engineering standpoint. So.
And these can work behind, obviously, like you said, red dots and holographic sights. Now, they don't really work very well behind other prism sights. You're essentially doubling up. Oh, he's giving me the look now as though maybe they do work. What's the deal there?
Well, so the verbiage that we had with the old magnifier and not being compatible with red dots or certain red dots, I think that was from more of a usability standpoint, and we didn't want to give people a false misconception of that it was, we wanted to set them up to have a really good experience from that standpoint.
Oh, speaking of the micro red dots out there, right?
Yeah. And so really with the red dots, what you're seeing, when you put a magnifier behind it, and if you remember the parallax discussion that we had, I don't know, a month ago or whatever it was, that 10-minute talk, with the magnifier, you're not really introducing any additional parallax. You're just magnifying the parallax that's already present. So depending on the red dot that you'd put in front of it, if that is designed in a way that you have a lot of parallax, you're magnifying that, so it's becoming more apparent to you. You're not creating 3 times more parallax, but your eye looks at it and sees, well, everything's magnified 3 times more, so it's a little bit easier for you to pick up on it. So, so that's kind of was kind of a misconception, and with some of the optical designs maybe that we had in the past, there was a touch more, but anyways, so you're really not introducing anything new, you're just magnifying what's there. Right. And as that relates to a prism sight, we say that these aren't compatible with prism sights. We have an interesting setup down in product development right now where we've got a Spitfire AR and then this behind it. And I haven't had a chance to go out and shoot it yet, but it's kind of a cool setup in that you've got a really crisp etched reticle in the Spitfire AR, and it appears to just kind of magnify everything just like it would with a red dot.
But the only problem would be that you'd have to set your Spitfire AR forward on the rail. So then if you flip this out of the way to just use the 1 power, it's far enough forward, you're not in the eye relief for it anymore.
And so I thought that too. I was like, this can't possibly work. And it does. It's super weird, and I don't have a great way of explaining it right now, which is why we haven't marketed it as such or said that it's compatible. But it's kind of a fun little Easter egg that I found as we were playing around with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because you would think, well, with the Spitfire AR having a fixed eye relief, this has to be in the sweet spot for it, but it's not quite the case. Yeah. I have some ideas, but I don't want to get into it in case they're not true, and I don't want to be putting misinformation out there.
That's fair. So with 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, what do you think about this new Micro 3X? What's so special about this particular magnifier here?
So I think, well, first and foremost, we heard you loud and clear on the mount, and having the button and flipping in the direction out of the box with the VMX 3T of it not being super friendly for right-handed shooters. So we made sure to address that. This new mount is awesome with just basically gross motor function. You can just push it out of the way. There's no button, and bring it back. An improved quick release system there. And then as far as the optics go, the field of view is wider, the resolution's better, color tone's better, and everything is smaller. So we really looked at a way of making the system, just basically making everything better. And with typical engineering trade-offs, you kind of think of it as like a rubber sheet. If you pull it in 2 directions this way, it kind of gets more narrow this way. So, so kind of the trade-off that we made when we did that with improving the optics and the size and the form factor and this better mount is just it costs a little bit more because you can't always get performance for free. But for the extra money over the VMX 3T, you really get a stellar optically performing magnifier, really flat, really wide field of view, and a short form factor, and about the same eye relief as you have in the VMX 3T. So
yeah, even a little bit longer. I think it actually has some pretty decent.
Yeah. I mean, it's really comfortable to get behind, and the way we design the optical system, the black bezel kind of around the outside as you look through it, we call that apparent field of view. We're able to really minimize that as well, and it's just a really nice. It's just really nice and comfortable to get behind.
Yeah. So. I was holding my phone up to it because I have like the big fat iPhone 10 or whatever, and it's less than half the length of my phone, and it's not even like height-wise, it's not even as tall as the width of the phone.
Got some product dimensions for it right there.
Oh, okay, way better. 6.9 ounces and 2.9 inches long. Yeah. That's mighty tiny.
Yep. She's compact.
Yep.
I'll say this, Jim, when we were running this thing a couple weeks ago down at the range, I mean, my groups did tighten up fairly considerably with the magnifier versus without. I mean, all impacts were on target, and we're probably going to do whatever they needed to do. But it was interesting to watch them tighten up.
Yeah, for sure. Just being able to see everything a little bit better. So
totally. Now with 15 seconds, here's one thing I see all the time. People say, why would I put a magnifier, 3x magnifier behind my red dot that has, say, even a 4 MOA dot like the StrikeFire 2? That'll make that dot 12 MOA. Actually, no, it won't. you're magnifying everything 3 times. So if the image gets 3 times bigger and the dot gets 3 times bigger, the net effect is 0. And that also goes into the parallax thing. The net effect of, what looks like a growth in parallax is 0.
Right.
Anyway, but I had to throw that out there because you see it a lot.
Net 0.
And there we go, at 10 minutes. Thanks, Rob, for joining us. That's Magnifiers, everybody. If you have any other questions, hit us up. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Sweet.
Damn, dog.
Probably went into a little bit too much detail in that one section.
No,
but
that was excellent.
It's kind of like an interesting little...
Oh, I thought it was very
Tease.
interesting.
Yeah. The other thing that I think, people say, well, why don't you just buy a low power variable, right? It's like I'm spending $300 on a red dot, and I'm spending $300. I might as well spend $600 on a low power variable like a PST 1-6, right? And so definitely that's a valid point. I would say the one thing that you can't maybe get out of a low power variable is you really get that daylight bright illumination from a red dot, and then the magnification along with it. So like with a strike eagle, the trade-off that you're making is twofold there. One, a second focal plane, so it's only the subtensions are only accurate at 6 power or 8 power, and then just the illumination isn't super bright. So that's kind of, I guess, another thing that you pick up with this is you have a really bright dot regardless, and then the ability of just adding some extra magnification. So
1 power with a red dot is just undeniably different than 1 power on any low power variable. Even the Razor, the Razor 1-6 has one of the best 1 power experiences, so to speak, of any low power variable out there. But if you get behind a red dot, there's just something undeniably different about it.
Yeah, for sure.